let's talk about Hamas. So, as I think a lot of you know and might have seen some TV or photos of this, today Hamas released the bodies of 4 of the hostages. 3 of the 4 bodies were of a mother and 2 young children. We don't know the exact circumstances under which these children died, in a sense, as what killed them. We know the circumstances. We don't know what killed them specifically. But they were in Gaza because they were kidnapped by Palestinians, probably civilians. They were kept among civilian Palestinians. Maybe at some point they were moved into tunnels by Hamas, but they were kept by civilians. Civilians knew where they were. Civilians were all around them. We're talking about a little baby that, when taken hostage, was a few months old. Would have been about 2 now, and another that was 2 when taken, or 2 plus, and today would have been somewhere between 3 and 4. Little baby boys. And however they died, they were murdered by Hamas. They were taken from their home in Israel. They were brought to Gaza for the explicit purpose of trading them in some kind of deal. I mean, just think of how despicable that is. Some kind of deal for murderers, for terrorists, for really horrific human beings, if you can even call them human beings, horrific animals. They were kept under horrible conditions. We know that from the ones from the hostages who were released alive. And what is particularly shocking about this, because, I mean, what's new about Hamas, right? They killed over 50 children on October 7th, and they killed them in front of their parents. They burnt them. You know all the stories, right? They raped women. They raped and killed them. They gang raped them and killed them. They burnt them. I mean, the barbarism is off the charts. It's barbarism that should remind us of what life was maybe like in certain parts of the world, and even in Europe 500, 600 years ago, thousands of years ago, certainly. But that, for the most part, in the West, we believed was gone. Barbarism like this didn't exist, and was eradicated maybe in some dark corners of the world. Well, it turns out Gaza is a dark corner of the world. Hamas embraces this barbarism, but what is shocking about it? Because look, the Russians in Ukraine are doing horrible things. They're kidnapping children. They're training those children to fight against Ukraine. They are raping. They're pillaging. They're murdering civilians. We saw that in the first few weeks of the war around Kiev. They are committing horrific acts against the civilians of Ukraine. But there's a difference. And the difference is that Russia denies all that. I mean, it's pathetic that they deny it, but they deny it. I mean, Lavrov just the other day said, "Oh, we don't bomb civilians. We follow the rules of law, supposedly, completely. We don't kill civilians. We don't rape anybody. We don't do this stuff. None of that happened. It's all propaganda." They know that those actions are barbaric, and they don't want to be associated with the barbarism, even though they do it, and everybody knows they do it, and they know they do it, and yet they still deny it. Hamas relishes it, embraces it, cherishes it, celebrates it. You could tell that by the fact that on October 7th, they live streamed the rape and murder and pillage and the killing of children. You know this because on October 7th, they were, we've got at least one phone call of one of them calling his parents with pride, telling them that he was killing Jews. And we know this because today, before releasing the 4 bodies, The coffins were paraded around. Palestinians were celebrating the death of little children, celebrating. Not a death of little children in an act of, in a struggle for self-defense. No, the death of the murder, the first-degree murder, kidnapping and murder of little children. And they were celebrating this in the streets of Gaza. And yeah, some of them were dressed up as Hamas fighters, and there was a contingent of Hamas fighters there in, quote, military uniform. But the rest of the thousands of celebrators were civilians. Civilians demonstrating or celebrating the death of children. You know, they are the only people I know of right now, at least publicly in the world, who celebrate their barbarism, who take pride in their barbarism, who take their barbarism a sign of strength and self-esteem and power. These are true barbarians. And it's not just Hamas. It's the Palestinian people. It is sick, depraved, barbaric, primitive culture. It is a culture that needs to be gone, eliminated. It is a people that need to be brought to their knees, because that is the only way their culture, they will eliminate their own culture. It cannot be that a civilized culture, and with all its flaws, Israel is civilized. Not every person in Israel is civilized. There certainly are crazy religious nuts in Israel. But the vast, vast majority of Israelis are civilized. That a civilized culture needs to tolerate these barbarians on their border. That a civilized culture needs to negotiate with barbarians. That a civilized culture has brought itself to the level of releasing murderers, kidnappers, rapists in those negotiations in order to free the bodies of some of its hostages. It is truly despicable. Truly despicable. So, you know, the tolerance for Hamas and for the Palestinians, the fact that everybody tolerates them, Europe tolerates them, but primarily, if you think about what this says about the American left, if you think about what this says about the student protesters, I mean, it's one thing to advocate for a cause. It's one thing to advocate for oppressed people. But to advocate for the murderers of children, the first-degree murderers of children, to advocate for rapists, murderers, barbarians, that is really a new low for the American left. I mean, they were low already when they supported North Vietnam in the Vietnam War. But again, you could tell, at least then, there was a clear American interest in not being there. So it tells you something about kind of how nutty the nutty left has become in America, and it's great to see. I mean, the best thing about what's happening right now is the complete marginalization of the crazy left, and we'll see how willing the Democratic Party is to play this out, to actually marginalize them, to kick them out, to make them unwelcome within the Democratic Party. There's some signs, maybe there's some people who'd like to do that, but it's not happening yet. Certainly American society, American culture repudiates these leftists. And that's a big part of why Donald Trump, I think, won. Will the Democrats get the message? I don't know. But yeah, the scenes we saw today in Gaza, the Red Cross threatened not to participate in the ceremony of releasing the bodies. Another despicable act of the Red Cross, even to consider it. And Hamas basically said, okay, we won't release them. And the Red Cross, in the end, had a table on the stage where they signed some documents. The whole show, the whole farce, the whole presentation is so disgusting. The only thing I would want to do is basically bomb the place into oblivion. Yeah. To tolerate these photos on TV, to tolerate them photographing them, and to feel free for them to do it without any fear of consequences. Unbelievable. I mean, yeah, this is the state of the world. And of course, it's the ICC. It's the Israeli government that's under investigation by the ICC. It's the Israeli government that is fearful to travel overseas. It is Israeli soldiers who might have served in Gaza who are afraid to go to Europe now because they might be arrested there, or to South America, places like Brazil, because they might be arrested there. I mean, they are somehow the villains. When, for all to see, we see the pictures, and it's not anybody's interpretation, but the pictures that Hamas, or the ceremonies, the celebrations, the barbarism is fully on display in Gaza. Nobody has any excuse anymore. All right, so let's put that aside. It is truly horrific. And if you haven't seen the video, I don't know. I guess I suggest you do, because it's worth seeing it, just so you know how bad the world is. But I can't recommend it because it's truly awful.